7th is just Natrona County. I would urge your favorable consideration of Senate File 26, including the fiscal note associated with it, which has an appropriation of $2,235,000. The Supreme Court, Ms. Butler, is here to provide further testimony about this and answer your specific questions. But I think of note, it really relates to the addition of the judge and then the judge's staff. So a pretty small actual consideration for what these are. And it really has to do with people in order to provide the legal work for this very important issue affecting our state. Happy to stand for questions, but probably prefer to defer to Ms. Butler here, who can provide additional testimony as to this need.
Committee questions for the senator before we go to Ms. Butler? Ms. Butler, please, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Elisa Butler. I am the State Court Administrator at the Wyoming Supreme Court. I would just echo the comments of Senator Nethercott. This is very much needed across the state. There are 2 judicial districts within this bill that there are appropriations attached to. And then there is a 3rd judicial district where it would authorize a judge, but not provide an appropriation. And that would be in the 6th judicial district. So there's no appropriation attached to that, but it would authorize it upon the certification of suitable quarters for that 4th district court judge in the 6th judicial district. And the 6th judicial district encompasses Campbell, Crook, and Weston counties. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Butler, committee?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, when we go to the fiscal note, and I think you've already articulated it, but I want to make sure. It says 8 full-time positions, 4 positions, including the new judge for each district. Could you clarify exactly what that is? Because first it's 8 full-time and then 4 positions. So you can help me through that and understand what we're doing there.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, it is 8 full-time positions, and those 8 full-time positions would be divided into those 2 judicial districts. So 4 positions for the 7th judicial district and 4 positions for the 3rd judicial district. And those positions are the same across those 2 judicial districts. It includes the judge, the judicial assistant, the law clerk, and the court reporter. So 8 in total, but 4 in each of those chambers.
Anything further, Senator Hicks?
No, Mr. Chairman, real quick. I'm assuming it's anticipated based on the workload analysis that there was already enough work for this, and that's why each one of the support positions there are also anticipated that workload is going to be needed. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, that is correct. I would say in all 3 of those judicial districts that we mentioned today, the workload study substantiates the need for an additional judge in all 3 of those judicial districts. The difference between the 3rd and the 7th is that they actually have quarters available now for those judges and the chambers. They have a courthouse, they have chambers, they have office space all available right now for those judges. In the 6th judicial district, it's my understanding that they're still working to provide those chambers and that courtroom for the additional 6th judicial district court judge.
And Mr. Chairman,
Please.
just real quick, because I'm not familiar with it. So regarding the clerk and the judicial assistants and the court reporter, do all cases that go before the district judges require those level of support to hear those cases?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, I would say yes, they do. I mean, I wouldn't say every single case that comes through the court is touched by every single one of those people. But yes, the judges do need all of the support of all of those staff members. Judicial assistants are very much needed in terms of helping the judges manage their dockets and manage their schedules. The law clerks, I think, I believe there was some testimony in the interim to the Joint Judiciary Committee about how important the law clerks are to the judges. They spend a substantial part of their day, the judges do, on the bench. And so in order to get opinions out in a timely manner, they need law clerks that will be able to research and help them write those opinions. And so in essence, yes. And then the court reporters, as you know, they report all of the matters. They are courts of records. So the court reporters are needed to report the hearings So there's a record on appeal if it comes up to the Supreme Court.
Mr. Chairman, just one more question. So this is the same level of support that all existing district court judges currently have, correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, that is correct.
Thank you.
Committee, anything else? I've got a question, two questions for you. When the judiciary appears in front of appropriations, they're always careful to lead off with, we're district court judges, and by constitution, we do not report to the Supreme Court, we're each our own department. If you got 4 judges in one district, is that a department, or is each judge their own department?
Mr. Chairman, under the budget, each of those judges are a separate agency within the budget. So they each have their own budget. So they are separate entities essentially.
Okay. And then workload studies, this, populations move around. Sometimes you have more, sometimes you have less. And so just asking theoretically that there might be a region where there's been enough shrinkage in population that perhaps a judge doesn't have as many cases as they might otherwise have. Is this workload analysis an ongoing thing to say, this judge handled X number of cases, this judge handled somewhat less than X on an ongoing basis? So, and then if that's the case, you call judge less than X and say, we need you to go over here and help out? And who makes that call, and who has the authority to tell judge less than X to go do that?
Mr. Chairman, we do have an ongoing workload study, and it does differ from year to year, although I will tell you in those 3 judicial districts, the filings have remained pretty consistent, and we've needed judges in those 3 districts for quite some time. I will tell you, we have, I believe, a few judges who have registered to testify today, and they can probably speak better to how they deal with the workload within the district courts. But it's my understanding that yes, they do travel around the state when there is a high workload in one location. They take cases all over the state. So they're, if they need to, you could have a judge from potentially Campbell County going to Fremont County to hear a case. That does happen quite frequently.
Yeah, I have no doubt of the need in these. I'm talking about a hypothetical district judge that might be underworked. And are they always, I've seen a lot of judges go out and help other judges, but in the case of a judge that isn't quite so ambitious, who is there to say, we really need you to go over to this other district and help them out? If they're an independent district, each one is their own independent agency.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I think you're asking who has the authority to tell the district court judges what to do? And the answer is no one. And it's probably best that way in many ways. There has been conversation in the past by the Joint Judiciary Committee for the need to perhaps have an administrative, one unified administrative role concerning the district court judges. They are strongly opposed to that. But there is no one. However, that said, I think you would hear testimony, and what we have heard from them is that they are certainly in close communication with each other. They do have a district court judges conference where they meet regularly. When one is in need, they pitch in for each other. Of course, conflicts happen for the judges too, or their dockets do get overwhelmingly too busy as a result of unique circumstances happening in those communities. And so it is commonplace and customary for them to be in communication with each other and rely on each other to provide that assistance. I would say as a systemic or an ongoing concern as it relates to the addition of these 2 new judges, I have heard conversation that there are judges in the state who aren't overworked, where their judicial districts do not necessitate the need for an additional judge. And so why aren't they filling in and augmenting these needs? And primarily it has to do with, it doesn't work that way. It's not that those judges that have a reduced workload don't have work, they certainly do. And so they're busy in their courtrooms daily. But they also can't be in 2 places at once. And so due to our geographical limitations and the need for their staff as well to be present, to have court reporters and law clerks available, they're not able to go spend days, a week outside of their judicial districts and traveling potentially hundreds of miles on a weekly basis. So that just doesn't make the most sense and doesn't work logistically to effectuate those needs. All the judges are busy though. The judges in these districts are overworked. And I do think, and so thus the bill before you. Again, for consistently the workload study for at least the last 7-8 years that we have seen, or that I've seen the data, supports the addition of the additional judges in these districts.
And of that, I have no doubt. It was a hypothetical question. Anything else for Ms. Butler? Please, Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a hypothetical question. Since you mentioned it, and I was going to get into this, and I'm all for the expenditure and all that, but you said that they answer to no one. And if they're each an agency in and of themselves, and we fund the agency to zero, can we kind of weigh in on that one?
Here's to the legislative branch, our third branch of government.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, through you, Senator Guru, the legislature always controls the purse strings. But when it comes to administrative answering for where a district court judge should allocate his time on a given week, the legislature certainly does not weigh in on that. And there is no particular entity that does except for those judges themselves.
There's some other folks here to testify. Is that correct? Did I hear you say that?
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have a few judges who have registered to testify remotely.
Okay. Karen,
Mr. Vice Chairman, I do have Judge Blumel and Judge Lavery. I believe, though, that the intent was to hold for any questions the committee might have
All right.
of them directly.
all right. I think that'd be best. Committee, any questions for the judges before we take up the bill? All right, I'll close public testimony. What's your pleasure, committee? Bill's been moved and seconded. Any amendments? Any amendments? No. Karen, please call the roll.
Thank you. On Senate File 26, Senator Guru. Aye. Senator Hicks. Aye. Senator Steinmetz. Senator Perkins excused. Senator Kinski. 4 aye, 1 excused.
Other count will carry the bill. All right, we're on to Senate File 48, 2022 large project funding. We have some familiar faces here. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carly Provenza. I am a House representative in Albany County, House District 45. I serve on the Select Natural Resource Funding Committee, which I understand that this committee has heard and has received testimony on this. And so I'm not going to belabor the bill. I will ask for your support, and I will also, just for explanation of the large projects, I will hand that over to my doppelganger, Director Budd.
Mr. Chairman.
Director Doppelganger.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. We can expedite this if you'd like. If you want me to go through each of the projects, I'm happy to do that. If not, it's money that comes out of the Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust account. There are no general fund appropriations. It's been through the Ag Committee, and you all are familiar with it from our JAC meeting. We talked about this at that time. So unless there are questions, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to leave it to your disposal at this point.
Committee. Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, what does this leave in the balance of that account that's unexpended balance? I know there's a lot of obligations in there into the projects account.
Mr. Chairman, a ballpark figure that's what's left in there right now is about $9.5 million.
And Mr. Chairman, just to follow up,
Please.
what's our normal, I know normal's a correct word, but so what would be our average expenditure for a biennium?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, if we were to take the average that we've done over the past 16 years for the biennium, it's going to be about 15 to 18 million. The last year we'll throw that because of COVID and other issues. We'll obviously skew that. We were only about 6.5, 7 million in the last biennium, but normally we'll run about 7 to 8 million a year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So I've got a nice spreadsheet here. The first 25 pages have done or partial. So the projects that we're really looking at today are on the last several pages that don't have the words done.
Mr.
them.
Chairman, no, the ones you're looking at today are in this handout that says 2022 large project recommendations. There are 5 projects that exceed the $200,000 requirement to bring them back for legislative approval. So it's just those 5 that you're authorizing.
Okay, let me just take a quick look then.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to go through them quickly if you'd like to do that.
That's fine. I saw my district, so I'm fine. Committee, anything else? Is there anybody, anything else before I go to the public? Is there anybody from the public here to testify? Not that you aren't public. Anyone? All right, we'll close the hearing. Committee, what's your pleasure? Bill's been moved and seconded. Any amendments? Karen, call the roll. Please.
Yes, for Senate File 48. Senator Guru,
Aye.
Senator Hicks,
Aye.
Senator Steinmetz, Senator Perkins excused, Vice Chairman Kinsky.
Aye.
4 aye, 1 excused.
All right, that bill goes out to the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Good to see you both. Senate File 80, Omnibus Water Bill Construction. And we have some folks here to help present that bill. And of course, as you're taking the seat, as you know, our job is just to look at the appropriations. We don't get into the merits of the bills. We simply look at the appropriations. And so we may take a dive into the merits, but ultimately all we can do is say yay or nay to the appropriation. Welcome. Please state your name for the record and welcome to be here.
Mr. Chairman, Jason Mead, Interim Director of the Water Development Office.
Senator French.
Brandon Gebhardt, Interim State Engineer.
Who'd like to lead off?
Mr. Chairman, I can handle that. So everybody should have a blue book in front of them, Blue Book Construction Bill, just to refresh your memory from a year ago, I suppose, how that's laid out. Inside the front cover, we have a blue sheet. These are what we call our blue books. This blue sheet is just a summary of the construction bill. And behind that blue sheet is a copy of the actual bill itself. Under tab A, we just have a brief description of our program. Tab B is our 3 accounts and the funding balances associated with each one of those accounts. We have account 1, new development, account 2, rehabilitation, and account 3 is our dam and reservoir program. And then starting under tab C are the actual recommendations that were considered by the Water Development Commission and the Select Water Committee to come up with the projects that were in the bill. So to be most efficient with your time, I would like to go back to the blue page right inside the front cover, the summary of the construction bill. And I'll just run through the different blocks of projects that we have.
Sounds great.
Okay, so block 1 is our level 3 new development projects in account 1. We have 2 appropriations for our operations associated with cloud seeding, and then 4 projects that are municipal in nature associated with transmission pipelines and storage tanks. And the total of those projects comes to $6,730,640. Block 2 is our account 2 rehabilitation program. We have 9 projects. These are typically our agricultural projects, irrigation rehab type projects. As you will note in the far right-hand column, we have about 5 of those that say C Note 2. And the reason for that is they are contingent upon an account transfer of $7 million from account 1 to account 2. So from our new development account to our rehabilitation account.
You know, is that transfer in the budget bill now?
Yes, it is. Well, so we are, this is mineral severance taxes. We're not generally funded. And so this is in the construction bill, this account transfer in section 3.
Okay.
So the total for our account 2 rehabilitation is $17,702,910. And then section 2 of the bill is our third block. And these are amendments to existing projects. The majority of them are just time extensions for one reason or another. Sometimes it might be problems getting easements or things of that nature. We also have the Small Water Projects Program, New Development, and the Small Water Projects Program, Rehabilitation. And every year we look at the projections from applications from sponsors, and we put additional funds into those two programs. So that's pretty typical. And then we also have a Laramie Valley Diversion, which just is requesting some additional funds. And then the last would be the Sponsor Contingency Fund for Account 3 Dams and Reservoirs. And with the volatile bidding and climate that we're currently facing, we're just wanting to get some additional funds into that so we can react quickly and possibly award some projects in our dam and reservoir account. So the total for our section 2 comes to, well, I don't have a total there, but basically 1.7, 21.7, it's out of 3 different accounts. And then section 3, as Senator Kinski asked, is just a transfer of funds from account 1 to account 2 in the amount of $7 million. So with that, I would ask if there are any questions on the construction bill.
Committee questions? I just have one, and it's one that if I were more active in the water development space, I'd know the answer. But years ago, I went to a Water Development Commission meeting, and there was a lot of angst about, should we be sending these people with these municipal projects first to SRF and to everything else, and only if they've exhausted everything else should they be coming to us, because we only have so much money, and the priority, and I feel the priority should be developing new resources of water. It's tough to build dams, but we got to give it a shot. Did that ever come to pass where you put in some rules that the municipalities and so forth are told, come in here when you exhausted everything else?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kinski, we do all of our municipal projects. We typically provide grant funding to, but then we send them to SRF for the loan portion or the loan match, drinking water SRF. So we have implemented that. And my personal beliefs are, with all this additional infrastructure bill funding and other fundings that are coming into SRF, that they should try to maximize the federal funding as much as possible. So not just come to us for 67%, but look to maximize that federal and then come to us for the match.
And it's easy, but it's easier to go to you for the grant than to do things like look at rural development. And I mean, I was involved in a project where they came to you just for the very last dollar. They had scratched and found every other federal grant possible. They worked hard to do it. And so you don't have a requirement that they have to show they've tried every other resource and failed before a municipality comes in on a municipal water project?
Mr. Chairman, no. At that point, I think it comes down to prioritizing of projects and bringing these in front of the commission and the Select Water Committee. And obviously they've looked upon more favorably if they're coming to the program with more funding in hand and asking for less.
And then there's some other programs where when a municipality comes in, and I spent 10 years as mayor, that they look at your rates. They look at really your ability to fund it yourself before you ask for grant money. Do you do that at all?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask for maybe help from a friend on this one.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have anything in criteria that has an ability to pay. Although through our process, we go through the level 1 and level 2 planning studies. And in that, there is a financial and economic analysis done. So we have a really good feel for what they can afford through that, through the planning studies that we do.
Okay, thank you. That's all my committees. Committee, I just want to circle back before I open it up for public testimony. Any other questions? Senator French, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, thank you, Senator Perkins. Just briefly, I would ask that you approve the appropriation. I'm here in support of it. Of all these projects that are listed on the blue sheet, as they talked about, these projects, I think I would venture to say affect everybody in the entire state of Wyoming. Whether you're a municipality that is getting some funding or like the cloud seeding that may allow, get more water in our streams. I would benefit people that fly fish, kayak, float the rivers, the ag industry. You know, they're producing food and fiber for everybody out there. So I strongly ask that you support this and move this out of committee because it, like I said, it supports everybody in the state. I can't think of anybody that wouldn't benefit from this.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator French. Anything for Senator French? All right. I'm going to open up for public testimony. Anybody here from the public or online? Karen? No? Public testimony going once, twice, 3 times? Meeting closed. What's the pleasure of the committee? Bill's been moved and seconded. Any amendments, committee? Please.
We'll have to track these in, but on, so if you go to your blue sheet and you go to level 3 projects, new development, then it says under tab E, F, G, and H. Mr. Chairman, those are all municipal water projects. And I think they would be eligible for ARPA direct funding as it currently is today. And so what I'm thinking of, I'll make a motion that we would include those for ARPA direct funding to the extent that they are determined to be eligible. And if they're not eligible, they would still be funded out of Water Development Account 1. That's about a $4.5 million appropriation that if they are ARPA direct available, that we would fund out of those ARPA direct funds. And if not, it'll still come out of Account 1.
I want to make sure I understand the motion because the way you said it the first time, it was if they were suitable. Then the second time you said it, you said, you know, well, I want to make sure is even if they got turned down, like they just didn't make the list, they ran out of funding, then those 4 projects could still come back here. Is that what you meant?
Well, right now, these are in the bill. So these would, so the determination would be if they're ARPA eligible for ARPA direct, they would be funded that way. So these would be applications that we put in right now for the funding of those. It's determined that they're not eligible for ARPA funding. They would still be funded under the current Water Development Account 1. The question I have is timing of that. And I would ask that of the director. Does that screw up the timing as far as the awarding and getting the projects out there and administered?
Please. Let me ask also, in the course of that, don't they already have a grant app in order to get this far?
Mr. Chairman, I do not believe that they would have a application into ARPA direct at this point.
No. To you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Or you could just grab a chair that's faster than the scribbled note. Just grab a chair, yeah.
Took too long to write there. Mr. Chairman, David Ray, Fiscal Manager, Water Development Office. The one concern that was coming to mind as you're asking that question, Senator Hicks, would be typically our omnibus bill is effective immediate. Whereas, I don't know if I'm understanding correctly, the ARPA direct funds may not be available until July. So that might set the timing back a little bit. I don't know if, you know, how quickly notice to proceed would need to happen.
But are you certain that the ARPA bill is not effective until July?
I'm not, I guess I'm.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think the way to resolve this is I'm going to withdraw my amendment at this point in time and see if we can answer that question. And if we can answer that question, then it wouldn't disrupt the timing of being able to get these projects out there. Then I'll bring that as a floor amendment.
It's withdrawn. Senator Guru.
Just in answer to the questions, I'm looking at the bill. It does say effective immediately. But yeah, that would be my only concern is I'd hate to see him miss a construction season. I know you would too. And so whichever way we work it out, maybe the other way to look at it is if we don't do this, maybe put the word out to folks that are getting ready to submit applications as they go into the pipe for next year, that they should be heading to the ARPA window first. If there's anyone, contemplating projects.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Another way.
And Mr. Chairman, I can't speak for all the ARPA direct funds, obviously, but just for comparison's sake, House Bill 6, which came out of the Select Water Committee, that appropriation would be effective July 1st, 2022. I don't know that that causes an issue for those projects, but
Mr. Chairman.
that would be my concern.
Please,
my
Senator
motion-
Hicks.
My motion is not, it will not be competing with those funds at all. Would not
What's House Bill 6?
on House Bill 6. That's a separate issue. These are potentially eligible under ARPA direct. So I would not be looking to fund these out of that House Bill 6, that $50 million appropriate, or the 95 million out of there. These would be, because that's not effective and just your normal process. You wouldn't be taking applications for that until later this summer anyway. So that's really geared up to start funding projects next year. What I'm saying is if there's an opportunity to get some ARPA direct money now, we should do that to free up that 4.5 million in account 1. So let me find out from our budget and fiscal staff. Go ahead, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, Karen just looked it up for us and Senate File 66 is effective immediately.
Okay, Senate File 66. So let me say this. I'm sorry that you withdrew your motion, Senator Hicks, because every one of these two departments should make a Herculean effort to see potentially if they qualify under ARPA. Some of these are planning grants, right? Some of these are planning grants.
Mr. Chairman, these are all construction.
These are all construction. I don't know. The state has retained an expert in ARPA. Did you know that? A consultant that's expert in ARPA. And I guess I'd ask for you to take every one of these over there and take a look at it and take them the full grant app so that they can take a look at that and see how much of this we can move over to ARPA and preserve as much water development as we can, and to make a sincere and genuine effort on that.
So,
Senator Steinmetz,
Mr. Chairman. if I
Senator
may-
Hicks.
I may on that. We know that the agricultural irrigation projects are not going to be eligible under ARPA because that was directed at municipal water and sewer. We've already seen those guidance. So all of those level 3 projects under rehabilitation would not be eligible. Under level 3 project amendments, most of those are time extensions. Small water project grants tend to be agricultural, natural resource based. Those are not going to be eligible under ARPA. All the rest of them are time extensions with the exception of Laramie Valley diversion structure. Again, that would be an agricultural project. So under the construction side of the bill, the only ones that I see based on the current guidance we've received are those 4 that I named that are municipal water projects.
So Senator Hicks, you don't even want to ask the question.
What's that?
You don't even want to ask the question. We have 50 million set aside for municipal water and sewer, another 50 million for any political subdivision, any political subdivision. And 10 years of creative grant making, even on the extension, sometimes you can get the back end, find a different grant source than on the front end. But if you're 100% convinced that only those 4 municipal projects are, then I'll tell them not to even ask the consultant.
Well, we can ask, but Mr. Chairman, the guidance that we've received from budget and fiscal now would already, at least my understanding is because the reason that we have a supplemental bill 82 that I asked to be laid back was for that very purposes. Since our budget and fiscal staff looked at those particular projects and said they will not be eligible under ARPA.
Okay. Well,
And
staff also.
these other ones fall into that same similar.
Yeah, and staff always has the caveat that the guidance is always changing. So we do have a bucket that's for any political subdivision. What about we're not looking at it here, but what about the planning grant portion for municipalities? Do you still have planning grant?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that would be the House bill that you'll be seeing next week, possibly sometime when it crosses over.
Well, then if you don't want to put all the projects through the screen, I'd certainly put all the municipal projects through that screen. Shift as much over to ARPA as you possibly can. Let's preserve this WCD. Let's preserve our water development money.
Mr. Chairman, that's our intent. We're trying to track all these federal funds that are coming through. So
Okay.
I do have a quick question if I could. When you're talking ARPA director, are we talking about Senate File 66? And okay, so
Now,
no.
it's not Senate File 66 because these are in the omnibus water bill. Senate File 66 has its own list of projects and programs that would be funded underneath that. These would be no different than any of the other ARPA projects that come out. We would fund these if it's determined to be eligible. So they're not funded under 66. They would be directly submitted for ARPA funding. I don't think we can say, well, we're going to fund this out of 66.
So Senator Hickson, to answer your question, there's 602 money and section 604 money. One of them is 109 million that has some guidelines to it. Then the 602 has a lot more flexibility. It is ARPA direct, but I wouldn't bother yourself with that. I'd just ask the consultant.
Mr.
You
Chairman.
know, I wouldn't try to get educated from us. I'd go to the experts.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that, and I could see, I mean, not to push back on you, but just to say, I think there could be two ways it could be funded. We could call it out as using ARPA Direct in this bill, like we did in the CWC Jackson Outreach Center in the capital construction bill, or these municipalities could apply under Senate File 66 under the ARPA Direct parameters that are there for the local governments and the 50 million for water and sewer projects that are called out in the direct ARPA bill, Senate File 66. If I'm wrong, let me know. I mean,
Well, Mr. Chairman. if I
Please.
can, the problem with that is the Water Development Commission and the Water Development Offices administers these. And so if we tell them to go over and go into the ARPA of Senate File 66 and go to SLIB, then SLIB administers those agreements. Most of these, because their construction have been through at least a level 1 and a level 2, the staff is familiar with them. The consultant selection process is much different from SLIB than it is for water development. So it would interject a tremendous level of complexity now to tell these sponsors that they have to go work with another entity that has their own granting program that doesn't have the engineering expertise that water development does and go through their normal process. So I would be reluctant to say we're going to send these projects now to the ARPA to go through SLIB for administration of the projects, because we don't even know what the rules that SLIB is going to adopt on these are yet. We have a standard program that these entities have all applied for. And so I would be reluctant to do that.
So Senator Hicks, the bill isn't gone yet. We don't know that everything has to go through SLIB. I mean, if their money is there, we might find a way to expedite these projects. Senator Guru.
Oh, and just, yeah, to clarify, that's why I was saying what I was saying when you said that, that didn't want to do anything that would tell these folks that are applying for these projects that their funding now is in jeopardy or in limbo or at the,
Absolutely
at the
not.
behest to some other government agency. It's like, if, as the chairman said, if there was a way, whatever vehicle that they could get funded, and maybe even there might even be new guidance, because I know they're putting a big emphasis on these water projects to be able to, you know, get that money ahead so they can get this construction season in, if it's possible. Great. If it's not, let's do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do anything.
Whichever way
I wouldn't do anything to slow them down.
Yeah.
I would not. But you know, sometimes they think they're going to go this season and it's really next season, you know, and then the other one is there's a north side tank here that clearly is a municipal project. It's a 2-year extension. I don't know, maybe we can swap that funding out. It's a municipal project. You know, if you've got dollars on the table, we might be able to swap it out. I just ask you to look with some creative grant making eyes at some of these projects and see how we can preserve as much of our money as possible.
Mr. Chairman, you've got that commitment from us. We will look at all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's up to you if you want to put an amendment to the bill, but we will definitely look at that.
We're not going to amend the bill. We just want you to make a sincere effort. And, you know, I hear what he's saying, just those ones that are clear winners that clearly go. And all this inside baseball about SF this, SF that, 602, I just go to the consultant and show them the list and say, tell us where you think we might be able to get some money out of ARPA for this. And it may very well be, the odds are that 95% or better that he's right. It's only 4 municipals, but to the extent, you know, you just move another couple $100,000 off, it's worth asking the question.
Based on the discussion we have here, I'm gonna move that we fund these projects out of ARPA direct funding. Reinstate my initial motion.
All right, it's been moved and
To
seconded.
the extent that they're ARPA eligible, and if they are not, will still be funded out of account one.
Yeah, we're backstop. Further
We're talking
discussion?
About EFGH, correct?
Yes.
And to
Further
the extent
discussion?
They're eligible for ARPA direct, then that will be, otherwise they're backstop with the water one, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, further discussion, further amendments. All right, Karen, call the roll.
On Senate File 80, as amended, Senator Guru,
Aye.
Senator Hicks, Senator Steinmetz, Senator Perkins excused, Vice Chairman Kinsky,
Aye.
4 aye, 1 excused.
All right, that wraps up our business. There being no further business, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.